welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm going to talk about adapting to an art style, just like the title says. I'm going to be very specific. I'm going to make a whole list. I will show you how to do it. But before we get there, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Agata Bednorz, and I worked in Germany. I'm from Germany. I worked in Karlsruhe as a 2D artist at KR3 Media. And just like I was introduced, I worked for a lot of clients, bigger and smaller clients. We made marketing games, Facebook games. We made, for generating clicks, for competitions and stuff. So those were always small games. And through my work with clients, I learned to come up with various art styles. And later I studied in Switzerland and decided to join Robot Gentlemen, who are in Poznań in Poland. This is my stuff. This is actually, those are things I do at home. I'm not just showing you this because I want to brag. This is actually very important. I want to show you how I work. My inspirations are expressionist art. I like to use shapes. I like to use straight lines. I like to construct faces. And I'm showing you this because this will be important later on. So keep this in mind. Some other art. You can see at the grandma here, I really like to use very, very basic shapes and construct faces with this. But now about my work, this is what I did at work, totally different from my personal work. This is stuff from KR3 Media, which means I usually made games in vector, as vector art. I used Disney-ish style. I used, stick figures. It's most of the time it's because you have budget restraints, you have time restraints, so you have to work very fast. And with the time and the budget I had, we made those mini games. And later, I hope this is better. And later, Robot Gentlemen and 60 Parsecs. So all I learned at KR3 Media and later in Switzerland, I used to work at the sequel to 60 Seconds. But maybe before I start to talk about art style, why this talk? Why do I believe this is important? Why do I want to tell you about this? Because usually when you start out in the industry or work in the industry, you join a team. So of course we want to work on our own stuff. We want to do our own stuff. We want to be the idea person. But the reality is that you join a team and very often you join an ongoing project. So what I'm going to tell you is something that's very important in the industry and very much in high demand. And also, if you see the pictures here, I didn't choose them just for fun. Those are actually pictures we did together at the whole art department. So we all worked on one picture, and I really like how it came out. If you watch at the picture on the left, this one is older, and you kind of can see that it's more stiff, a bit cold. We weren't working super great together yet, but then the next picture is amazing, and there's progress here, and I always like to show this. So, before I'm going to talk about art style, I always find making a definition and understanding art styles is very helpful. And I believe there are people who can explain this better than me, so I'm not going to pretend I can. And I chose Marco Bucci, who has a very nice YouTube channel. You can watch his channels. He's an amazing teacher. He also is a teacher at CG Master Academy. He explains stuff really nicely. So he said, I really find that style is like speaking a language. It's like different dialects of a language or using slang. And what he means by this is that we all speak the same language, we use rules, we understand the rules, but how we say it is different. The emotions behind our words are different. So let's say you were playing the newest Death Stranding and you meet with your friend and you tell your friend, yeah, that's a cool game, that's a cool game. And your friend says, oh my god, that's such a cool game. There's a difference. You say the same, but there's a different emotion in, well, your friend's reaction and your reaction. So this is the same with art styles. And I made a small list of well, the most important art styles. This is by far not a complete list. This is just a very short list to get an idea about art styles. This is not my focus of the talk, but it gives us an idea how to work with art styles. And as you can see, I'm going to start with abstract. Well, we all know Tetris, we all know Pong. Those are the most famous games that are done in abstract style. Of course, we also know that they were done like this because of hardware limitations and knowledge limitations. So then it was not an art style. Now it is, and most of the time it's going to be used for arcadey type of games or rhythm games. But I also show you here on the right a little example, Thomas Was Alone, which is also done in abstract style. So you play an orange square, a red square, and it's not a rhythm game, it's a whole story, emotional story with characters, and you have just, well, squares, and it's still working. Why is it working? Because it works amazing in the setting, which is a computer mainframe. The next one I like to show you is the realistic art style. There's not much I have to tell you. The idea to make art as realistic as possible is not new. It's not new for games. It's not new for art. We have done this before in art, in the Renaissance, Da Vinci, Caravaggio. They all tried to make art as realistic as possible. So we do the same with games. Of course, it's to make games as realistic as possible, but why? Because it makes immersion easier. So we are in Forza, we are driving this car, it's amazing. We're in Battlefield, we are shooting at people, we are killing people, it's amazing. And the next one, the stylized one. As I said, this is a very, very short list, so, you know, I have put everything in one slide, and stylized is everything from 3D cartoony to 2D cartoony to pixel art. And, well, I chose those games not just because I like them, and I like them very much. Of course, I chose Mario because he's one of the most famous game characters, and his design is super iconic. But also, it shows us that the stylized art style actually is very goal-oriented. So you tell a story, and you use your art style to show this story, to show these characters. Let's take Valiant Hearts in the Middle, for example. Why does the guy look like this? It's a game about the First World War, a game about everyone who was in this World War. This is anonymous. This is not some specific person, it's a person. So we don't see his eyes. Every character in this world doesn't show their eyes. The only one who shows his eyes is the dog. So we don't get a glimpse into their eyes. Those are everyday people. Or, for example, Undertale here. Why this style? Why does the main character look like this? Those are like 3 lines for a face. And this is a conscious decision because this character, just like in Valiant Hearts, can be everyone. This is a genderless blob. This is not female, not male. This is someone. This is the story of someone. So we can use this to, well, make our story or characters more important. But it also brings something else, and this is memorability. And I promise you, I'm going to tell you a title of a game, and you will have the game before your eyes instantly. Limbo. This style is so memorable. We remember this. This is black and white, film grain, those long shadows, this film noir type of style. And suddenly this story about a boy who's searching for his sister becomes a hellish journey. It's not just a journey, it's a hellish journey. And I love this about stylized art style. There's another example I like to give, which is Okami by Clover Studio. This is another example because the pitch version was so different from the final version of the game. So the pitch version was actually, the pitch was, hey, this is going to be a game about nature. Now we use a white wolf who's walking around and plants are growing. And yeah, this worked out, but the finished product, so through iteration and iteration, the finished product became this amazing game about old Japan, Japanese folklore, about the sun goddess Amaterasu, who's fighting those known Japanese demons, and the art style, which is very watercolory, zoomy, cel-shaded art style, works perfectly for the story. And also, why I like to give this example is, it's not just that it tells a story or shows us the characters, it actually inspired a gameplay mechanic for Okami. So Okami, Ami. Amaterasu is actually fighting with her tail, and she's drawing lines or circles, and with those things she's attacking, she's slicing someone up, she's putting a bomb on the ground or electrocuting someone. So through the decision to make it watercolory, to make it in these typical Japanese watercolor style, the gameplay mechanic of the celestial brush was inspired. And for me, that's amazing. So, but that's enough about, art style and stuff. Let's get specific. And I'm going to start with my work at KL3M. I made a game for AXA, the French insurance company. What does this have to do anything with adapting to an art style? Well, I was not so much as adapting, but more using the corporate identity of AXA. I had the chance to make a game for AXA that works with their whole identity of their corporation. So I used the blue colors. I used the red for the most important parts. I used the upwards trend of the logo. I used the shapes of the logo. Everything is a bit crooked. Everything uses shapes, no outlines or anything. And everything is, bluish red, except the cars, which are the most important part in the game, so they are very colorful. So when I had the time and the chance, I did this. I came up with things that work for the client. And a little fun fact, I hope you can see it. If not, I'm going to tell you. In the back, actually, you can see the AXA logo on a door. So the door slides open. And to visualize that it's a door, I made some lines on it. I actually got a call from AXA, and they told me, "Oh God, no, we can't do this. You can't rework the logo. This is not possible." And I said, "Well, yeah, sure, I understand. Tell me if I should get rid of it." And they actually said, well, you know what? Let me just talk with everyone at AXA, with the decision makers at AXA, and we will decide if this can stay. And I got another call, and they told me it can stay, which is actually amazing because usually when you work for a client, never, ever, ever touch their logo. Don't do anything with the logo. You can put it somewhere, but you don't rework it, so to speak. So I'm actually proud of it that they accepted it. And I like to believe it is because the game itself shows their corporate identity pretty nicely. So they decided to keep this. So after I finished my work at Kaya Media, I decided to use the things I learned there to work on a bigger project. And well, first I went to study, and then I decided to find a new job. And maybe there are some people here starting out, I don't know. This is very important for you because this will come up every time. You will have to do an art test. If you want to be an artist in the industry, they will send you an art test. And this is the same what I did. I sent my CV away to Robot Gentleman, and they sent me this. They sent me Ted McDoodle, you see on the left, the guy with the newspaper, and they told me, cool, Agata, you know what, now create a character that is working in this world of 60 seconds. Come up with the neighbor. So those are the sketches I did, and I like to show these because, you know, it shows nicely that the first idea is not always the best. And remember that I told you to remember my art style, my personal work. You see my style in the first character here. He is done with shapes and straight lines. This is typical me. And of course, the first reaction you have, yeah, I'm going to draw it like I like. But if you want to adapt to a style, if you want to work on an ongoing project, you have to put this away and research your style you see here. So I realized, yeah, no, this is not working. I have to do it differently. So I started to research. I looked at screenshots. I played the game. And I came up with George McArtdoodle here, Art Test. Let's call him this, George McArt Test. And he's way more in style. He's not perfect. I'm going to say this. But, you know, your art style will never be perfect. This is an ongoing process. You will learn the whole time. So your art test has to show your potential. So it has to show you did your research. And I did my research, and Robot Gentleman accepted me, and I became a robot. And this is what I was working on. 60 seconds, you see on the left, and 60 parsecs, you see on the right. So I always like to tell what kind of games these are. So let me say this. 60 seconds is set in the 1950s, 60s of America. You have a typical American family. There's the fear of the apocalypse, of the atomic bomb. And yeah, well, the atomic bomb drops. And you, as a loving father, have 60 seconds to run through your house, grab stuff, grab soup, water, and items, your family, put them in the bunker, and then you have to survive in the bunker. This is basically the game, and 60 parsecs is the same, but it's in space. So I joined the team, and I got the pitch. We are going to do 60 seconds. It will play at the same time. This is not a sequel as in later. It's not a prequel. It's like in the same timeline. So we had to research what we want to do with 60 parsecs, which is suddenly actually in an alternative universe, where 60 seconds was 1960 America. Now we want to do this in space, and we have to come up with things that would work in the 1960s, but we all know America didn't have a space station in the 1960s. So we wanted to capture the style and feel of the space race at the time, but still, be in style of 60 seconds. So we made a Pinterest with a lot of inspiration. We had inspiration from comics, sci-fi comics from the 1950s and 60s. We found some NASA technology, which we also used, some illustrations, very old sci-fi movies. We put this all into our Pinterest, and we used this as an inspiration. So we had to find our main environment. And I'd like to show you the environment specifically because it was a very, very long process until we had this, what you can see on the left. On the right is the 60 seconds bunker, very sparse. 60 parsec has a bit more going on. So before we came to this, we had to decide what do we want, what kind of atmosphere do we want to capture. So I started with some basic sketches, how the space shuttle, our characters will be in, how it can look like. I got into a bit more detail, put in some clones with things I created. I also inspired designers, and that's what I mean with working together in a team. It's not just artists do their thing and that's it. I made a calendar, for example, and our designer said, yeah, that's a nice idea. We can do it like this. We can put it there. And if you click on it, blah, 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 blah. Also a crafting station and stuff. So we inspired each other. It got a bit more specific. And my idea was, well, let's go into the sci-fi comic direction. So all those wacky technological things, the computers, those strange colors, all those wacky stuff like the Jetsons, or for example. So those were my inspirations. But we realized this is not working since we actually don't want to lose the depressing atmosphere. It may be a fun game, a funny game also, but in the end, it's a survival game. So we're shut in a space shuttle. We can't get out. We have to survive. It's about death. So the depressing atmosphere was actually important for us. So this is not working. This is too colorful and cute. So back to the drawing board. I used more straight lines, everything became more constructed, more edgy computers and stuff. The round shapes of the first design I made went out. I didn't use them at all. We got a bit more specific here. So we also had the idea for the characters to look at the camera, and then we had the idea to let the characters look at each other, which again was inspiration for our relationship system in the game. So suddenly these characters actually interact with each other, and so we used those chairs on the right. Some color variations. Well, again, we tried to find this depressing atmosphere, and what we decided on was a bit the green and, well, the two top ones, I combined them. And fun fact, the space shuttle on the right, the colors are inspired by Alien Isolation. So more detail, it's suddenly becoming an environment for a game, and then the final thing. And to show, well, the difference, I have the first one and the second one besides each other. Totally different, right? Also, since it's an alternative universe, as I said, we used a lot of computers for our game, but since, America didn't have a space shuttle at the time and didn't have the technology we needed for our game, we came up with our own technology. And we used some NASA designs, combined them with those sci-fi designs, and tried to make something that could work in this time, you know. So, as I promised, I said I'm going to make a list and tell you how you can adapt, and this is what I'm doing now. This is the most basic thing you can learn. And no one is throwing tomatoes, so I'm guessing you're too polite, because this is also the most basic thing for art making. So if you draw still life, portraits or anything, these 7 elements I'm showing you here, you use these to create art. And this is the same for creating art that's adapting to another style, to an established style. You can use these elements to work out this style, and I'm going to show you how you can do it. So let's start with shapes. This is actually very nice also for learning a bit of character design. You can use this to come up with nice characters. So on the left, we have Ted and Dolores McDoodle from 60 Seconds, and I realized they very much use very basic shapes for their design. And I decided for the characters in 60 Parsecs, I will use those shapes too. And for Emmett and Megan here, the next 2 characters, it's the square and the circle. The circle, obviously, with her glasses, her earrings, her amazing hips and everything. And Emmett is just a small, I don't know, line in the landscape. There's a German saying we have. Also here, we have Mary Jane and Timmy from 60 Seconds. If you're wondering why Timmy has the circle, it's not just that they are built from circles, it's also, you know, the character you're showing. So Timmy is this round and cute boy, and Dolores here, well, she's the nagging wife. So her hair is very spiky, her dress is very spiky, so those shapes also show their character. I cheated a little bit with the triangle here, since Baby Bronco, the guy in green, actually is also, again, more a round shape, but I really like, you know, his Dorito-shaped chest. So this was very important, and you will, in the next step, you will see why this is important. Oh, well, I'm a bit too fast. It will be the next step, but first let's talk about form. Form means the 3D form of your thing you're drawing. So if you're drawing a still life, it's how do I show that the apple is round? And in this case, how do I show that the character is 3D? So I analyzed how shadows work in 60 seconds. You can see this here with beautiful blue shadows. I marked them in blue. And I copied this for Emmett Ellis here, and copied the way the artist of 60 Seconds, Julius Zenkner, actually used shadows. The next one, this is the one I wanted to talk about, is space. So how much space does my character take? So let's say long and meager like Dolores, or short and, well, more wide. So these things were important for the characters too, and that's why I like to show Baby Bronco, because his Dorito-shaped chest is very much visible, just like the hips of Megan Mann, which are also bigger and more present than others. So I analyzed how 60 Seconds is using space. Then I combined lines and texture. It's pretty self-explanatory. How are the lines drawn in 60 seconds? Are they stiff? Are they sketchy? Do they have color or anything? So I copied this for 60 parsecs, and texture I analyzed if there are any textures in 60 seconds, and I realized that Julius is using those little, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to tell you this. He's not just making outlines and then coloring it. He's actually using those little black lines to give the characters, to give the environment a bit more life. The problem with digital art can be sometimes that your art looks too stiff and cold. So Julius worked against it with those, you know, those sketchy lines to give this more life. And I analyzed that and used this for 60 parsecs. And then color and values. Well, obviously, I analyzed how color is used in 60 seconds. If you look closely, you will see that 60 parsecs looks a bit different. So we have a lot more going on than in 60 seconds. So I had to come up with another way to make the characters stand out. It's very much more readable in 60 seconds. So in 60 parsecs, we have way more things going on. So I came up with those colorful comic-inspired space suits. So there are those colorful blobs in the middle, and they draw your eyes to the middle. And then the last thing, and this is actually not on the list, I made this my own point. This actually is part of the list, but I'm going to make my own point here. Since, you know, if you adapt to an art style, you also try to find out what's the most defining thing of the style you see here. So with 60 seconds, it obviously eyes, nose, and mouth. So I could copy this, sure, but we decided to make a way more diverse cast for 60 parsecs. Since it's in space, we don't have just one family, we have very different characters. So I was breaking the rule, actually. For example, you can see here Megan Mann in red has Chinese heritage. To show this Chinese heritage, I had to change her eyes, for example. And why is this working? Because all the other rules are still in check. So I could break the rules a little bit. I did the same with Emmett here, who's Afro-American. So I made his nose bigger. He has fuller lips. And I can do this because everything else is still in style. So with this, you can make more character variations. You're not just copying. And with creating characters, actually, you know, we had a lot of fans already for 60 seconds. So it's not also just about copying the style. It's also copying the characters, their personality. So I had to analyze how is their personality looking like. And the characters are always kind of archetypes. I like to call it a little bit anime-ish. And we did the same with 60 parsecs. And all these characters are their own kind of archetype. So we have Emmett Ellis, the nerdy scientist. We have Baby Bronco, the soft, big guy who looks mean, but it is actually very cute. We have Megan Mann, the super badass businesswoman. And then we have Didi at the top, who's just done with her life. We added more characters. We have Tom. He changed a bit, so you see concept art of him here. He has very short hair now, but before I gave him long hair, which is very fun. Yeah, if you create these characters, if you come up with the personality, I have one tip for you. Always draw them in a pose that shows their character. So don't let them just stand there or something. Show what they're doing, show who they are. So this is the same I did for these characters. Didi is just drinking her coffee. Tom here, down here, On the right is the gigolo guy. So obviously he's winking at you. Don't do what I did here with April. She's just standing there. And who is this? I don't know. You can't see it because she's just a girl standing there. And, you know, creating these archetypes, creating these fun characters gives fans enough space to come up with their own character ideas, as in, well, they call it headcanons, with their own ideas who these characters are. There's enough space for them to add their own stuff. And Tumblr went wild with these characters, which I'm very proud of. I'm very happy fans had the coolest ideas. Some character features, so we were thinking about giving some small details to the spacesuit, you know, to show who this is. Because the spacesuit on its own, well, it's very bland. Of course, we have the color, but we wanted to give one item that shows the gamer, the player, who this is. So you can see Emmett, who was always my, you know, I don't know how you say it, my science, my lab mouse, my lab rat. So everything I did with Emmett first. And he was wearing a lab coat. He had those alchemic stuff on his belt. And yeah, we realized this is too much. So he's just wearing this chemist glasses. And that's also with the rest. Didi is always holding her coffee. And Megan Mann, for example, has a lot of jewelry and stuff. Those little subtle things. Some color variations. And yeah. So, you know, I showed you everything I know. I tried to make it as easy as possible. But, you know, it's easy for me to tell you, do this, do that. Do this and you will be awesome and everything will work out. But the reality is different. So working with a style that's not your own will always be hard. And this will always be a learning process. And I'm here to show you that I had to learn a lot too, and I'm still learning. So the space shuttle I showed you at the beginning, for example, was the first challenge. At the beginning, it looked terrible. It was stiff, it was lifeless, it was ugly. So there were a lot of iterations until it became what it is. But I have another nice example, which is Sharikov the cat here. We made a DLC for 60 seconds, and Julius, my art director, came to me and said, "Hey, Agata, you know, we're adding a cat character. Can you come up with something?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course. I love cats. I'm going to do this." And we already have a dog in the game, so you see him down here. This was I analyzed the dog. So this is what I was analyzing, and I came up with these sketches. And it's not working out. It's not in style. And again, you will see it. The Siamese cat at the beginning, super in my typical style. I used straight lines. I used shapes. I constructed the cat. And it's terrible. The rest, why is the rest not working? Well, there's some Disney-ish art style in it. So, you know, I didn't analyze the thing enough. The paws are working out, so I copied the paws. But this is not enough to make the cat actually part of 60 seconds. So my cat didn't make it into the game, but working in a team, you know, nothing is lost, so to speak. So Julius got inspired by this and came up with Sharikov himself, which you can see here. And this is working way better for 60 seconds. My stuff is just not in style. And this is the thing. Sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. This is reality. This is part of the job. But, you know, with iteration and iteration, you get better and better. And this is a screenshot from the game. Also, fun fact, there's a cat who has my name. So if you play the game, find me. So I'm coming to an end slowly. And this is the journey I went through. So 60 seconds first, George McArt test, and then Emmett Ellis from 60 Parsecs. And I feel like you can see those subtle things. It will be a bit difficult now, but now I see that my art test has those little things that are not in style. I gave him a nose bridge, for example, super not typical 60 seconds. His hands are very constructed again. So I see those little details now. But, you know, as I said, it was a learning process. I was working hard, and Emmett Ellis came out, and yeah, so it worked out in the end. And to summarize, what can you do if you become part of a team, of an ongoing project with a pre-existing style? So if you can, study Photoshop files. This helps a lot. For example, I studied the Photoshop files very late in the production. So when I found the Photoshop files and I started to analyze them, I learned a lot more. So, for example, how you actually drew shadows and stuff. So you can learn a lot from files. So if you become part of a team, ask for them. This is super important. Also, maybe the team you're joining, maybe they have a style Bible. Well, it's not very common, but maybe they have. So this helps a lot too, of course. So in the style Bible, you see the do's and don'ts. It's it's a description how to how to draw in this style and stuff. So if you're lucky, maybe there is an art Bible. And the most important part, and this was very important for me too, Julius was always part of the process. So he was the vision holder of the whole thing, and he was always there for me. So I could ask him everything, and really ask. I know that we sometimes want to do best and don't want to, we don't want to look like idiots or stuff, but this is important, and this helps a lot. So ask a lot, communicate a lot. I asked Julius too, Julius, what is the most important part for you in 60 seconds? Tell me what is the most important thing you feel I have to do in 60 parsecs? And he told me, it's the noses. So I never forget that, and yeah, I'm always keeping track of the noses, and from the beginning until now, the noses are the most important part. So thank you very much.